Page 2 of The Adventures of Master F.J. by George Gascoigne. This Librivox Recording is in the public domain. Note: Q1 here reads, When I had with no small entreaty obtained of Master F.J. and sundry other toward young gentlemen, the sundry copies of these sundry matters, then as well for that the number of them was great, as also for that I found none of them so barren but that in my judgment had in it aliquid salus, and especially being considered by the very proper occasion upon which it was written, as they themselves did always with the verse rehearse unto me the cause that then moved them to write, I did with more labour gather them into some order, and so placed them in this register, wherein as near as I could guess, I have set in the first places those which Master F.J. did compile. And to begin with this his history that ensueth, it was, as he declared unto me, written upon this occasion. The said F.J. chanced once in the north parts of this realm to fall in company of a very fair gentlewoman, whose name was Mistress Elinor, unto whom, bearing a hot affection, he first adventured to write this letter following. End of note. Fair lady, I pray you understand that, being altogether a stranger in this country, my good hap hath been to behold you to my no small contentation, and my evil hap accompanies the same with such imperfection of my deserts, as that I find always a ready repulse in mine own forwardness. So that considering the natural climate of the country, I must say that I have found fire in frost. And yet comparing the inequality of my deserts with the least part of your worthiness, I feel a continual frost in my most fervent fire. Such is then the extremity of my passions, the which I could never have been content to commit unto this telltale paper, were it not that I am destitute of all other help. Accept therefore, I beseech you, the earnest good will of a more trusty than worthy servant, who being thereby encouraged, may supply the defects of his ability with ready trial of dutiful loyalty. And let this poor paper, besprent with salt tears, and blowen over with scalding sighs, be saved of you as a safeguard for your sampler, or a bottom to wind your sewing silk, that when your last needleful is wrought, you may return to reading thereof, and consider the care of him who is more yours than his own, F.J. This letter by her received, her answer was this: she took occasion one day at his request to dance with him, the which doing, she bashfully began to declare unto him, that she had read over the writing which he delivered unto her, with like protestation, that, as at delivery thereof, she understood not for what cause he thrust the same into her bosom. So now she could not perceive thereby any part of his meaning. Nevertheless, at last seemed to take upon her the matter, and though she disabled herself, yet gave him thanks, as, etc. Whereupon he brake the brawl, and walking abroad, devised immediately these few verses following. Fair Bersaba the bright, once bathing in a well, with dew bedimmed King Davids eyes that ruled Israel, and Solomon himself, the source of sapience, against the force of such assaults could make but little defence. To it the stoutest yield, and strongest feel like woe. Bold Hercules and Sampson both did prove it to be so. What wonder seemeth then, when stars stand thick in skies, if such a blazing star have power to dim my dazzled eyes? L'Envoy. To you these few suffice, your wits be quick and good, you can conject to change of hue what humours feed my blood. F.J. Before he could put these verses in legible writing, it pleased Mistress Elinor of her courtesy thus to deal with him. Walking in a garden among divers other gentlemen and gentlewomen, with a little frowning smile in passing by him, she delivered unto him a paper, with these words: For that I understand not, quoth she, the intent of your letters, I pray you take them here again, and bestow them at your pleasure. The which done and said, she passed by without change either of pace or countenance. Fernando, somewhat troubled with her angry look, did suddenly leave the company, and walking into a park near adjoining, in great rage began to wreak his malice on this poor paper, and the same did rend and tear in pieces, when suddenly at a glance he perceived it was not of his own handwriting, and therewithal abashed. Upon better regard, he perceived in one piece thereof written in Roman these letters, Cole, which in English betokeneth she, whereof placing all the pieces thereof as orderly as he could, he found therein written these few lines hereafter following. Your sudden departure from our pastime yesterday did enforce me for lack of chosen company to return unto my work, wherein I did so long continue, till at the last the bare bottom did draw unto my remembrance your strange request. And although I found therein no just cause to credit your colored words, yet have I thought good hereby to requite you with like courtesy, so that at least you shall not condemn me for ungrateful. But as to the matter therein contained, if I could persuade myself that there were in me any coals to kindle such sparks of fire, I might yet peradventure be drawn to believe that your mind were frozen with like fear. But as no smoke ariseth where no coal is kindled, so without cause of affection, the passion is easy to be cured. This is all that I understand of your dark letters, and as much as I mean to answer. Cole, in English, she. Fernando immediately upon receipt hereof, grew in jealousy that the same was not her own device, and therein I have no less allowed his judgment, than commended his invention of the verses and letters before rehearsed. For as by the style this letter of hers bewrayeth that it was not penned by a woman's capacity, so the sequel of her doings may decipher, that she had more ready clerks than trusty servants in store. Well yet as the perfect hound, when he hath chased the hurt deer amid the whole herd, will never give over till he have singled it again. Even so Fernando, though somewhat abashed with this doubtful show, yet still constant in his former intention, ceased not by all possible means to bring this deer yet once again to the boughs, where she might be the more surely stricken, and so in the end enforced to yield. Wherefore he thought not best to commit the said verses willingly into her custody, but privily lost them in her chamber, written in counterfeit, and after on the next day thought better to reply, either upon her or upon her secretary, in this wise as here followeth. The much that you have answered is very much, and much more than I am able to reply unto. Nevertheless, in mine own defence, thus much I allege, that if my sudden departure pleased not you, I cannot myself therewith be pleased, as one that seeketh not to please many, and more desirous to please you than any. The cause of mine affection, I suppose you behold daily. For self-love avoided, every wight may judge of themselves as much as reason persuadeth. The which if it be in your good nature suppressed with bashfulness, then mighty Jove grant you may once behold my wan cheeks washed in woe, that therein my salt tears may be a mirror to represent your own shadow, and that like unto Narcissus, you may be constrained to kiss the cold waves, wherein your counterfeit is so lively portrayed. For if abundance of other matters failed to draw my gazing eyes in contemplation of so rare excellency, yet might these your letters both frame in me an admiration of such divine esprit, and a confusion to my dull understanding, which so rashly presumed to wander in this endless labyrinth. Such I esteem you, and thereby am become such, and even he, F.J. This letter finished and fair written over, his chance was to meet her alone in a gallery of the same house, where his manhood in this kind of combat was first tried. And therein I can compare him to a valiant Prince, who distressed with power of enemies, had committed the safeguard of his person to treaty of ambassade, and suddenly, surprised with a camisado in his own trenches, was enforced to yield as prisoner. Even so Fernando Jeronimi, lately overcome by the beautiful beams of this Dame Elinor, and having now committed his most secret intent to these late rehearsed letters, was at unwares encountered by his friendly foe, and constrained either to prepare some new defence, or else, like a recreant, to yield himself as already vanquished. Wherefore, as in a trance, he lifted up his dazzled eyes, and so continued in a certain kind of admiration, not unlike the astronomer, who, having after a whole night's travail, in the grey morning found his desired star, hath fixed his hungry eyes to behold the comet long looked for, whereat this gracious Dame, as one that could discerne the sun before her chamber windows were wide open, did deign to embolden the fainting knight with these or like words. I perceive now, quod she, how mishap doth follow me, that having chosen this walk for a simple solace, I am here disquieted by the man that meaneth my destruction, and therewithal, as half angry, began to turn her back, when Fernando, now awaked, gan thus salute her. Mistress, quod he, and I perceive now, that good hap haunts me, for being, by lack of opportunity, constrained to commit my welfare unto these blabbing leaves of bewraying paper, showing that in his hand. I am here recomforted with happy view of my desired joy. And therewithal, reverently kissing his hand, did softly distrain her slender arm, and so stayed her departure. End of page 2.